Sweat clung to the packed Atlanta courtroom as the gavel slammed, sealing Maya Jackson's fate. Prosecutor Edward Langston smirked, his voice dripping venom as he branded her just a civilian for filming cops brutalizing a black teen. Guilty of obstructing justice, she stood silent, unshaken. Then, mid-sentencing, a cryptic email pinged the judge's laptop, whispering Maya's NSA ties. Gasps erupted, Edward's triumph froze, but this flicker of vindication hid a brewing storm, one that would scar her life forever. What unleashed this chaos? Before we dive in, let me know where you're watching from and if you stand for justice. Against corruption, hit like and subscribe for more gripping tales. Maya Jackson sat on the cold steel bench of her holding cell, the damp Atlanta air seeping through the bars, clinging to her skin like a second layer of confinement. Her navy blazer hung crumpled over her shoulders, a stark contrast to the crisp demeanor she'd worn in court just hours ago. She replayed the moment that landed her here, her fingers tracing the memory of her phone's smooth surface as she'd filmed two cops pummeling a black teenager in a dimly lit alley off Peachtree Street. His cries had echoed against the brick walls, a sound she couldn't unhear, a sound that drove her to press record despite the flashing lights and barked orders to stop. That video had gone viral within hours, 12 million views lighting up screens across the country, a raw glimpse of brutality that made stomachs churn and headlines scream. Now, here she was, locked up for daring to shine a light, branded a troublemaker by a system that preferred shadows. Her tightly coiled hair pressed against the wall as she tilted her head back, eyes scanning the chipped ceiling, counting cracks to steady her nerves. She wasn't just some bystander with a phone, she was Deputy Director Maya Jackson of the NSA, a title buried deep beneath layers of cover, a secret she'd held tight even as Edward Langston's venomous words rang in her ears. Just a civilian, he'd sneered, his tailored suit pristine as he strutted before the jury, painting her as a meddler, a nobody who'd stepped out of line. The irony twisted her lips into a faint, bitter smile. If only he knew the clearance, levels she wielded, the classified ops she'd run from sterile offices in Maryland. But she kept her mouth shut, her silence a shield, knowing the truth would surface when the time was right. The cell block hummed with distant clangs and muffled shouts, a rhythm she'd learned to tune out until footsteps snapped her focus sharp. Edward Langston burst through the door, his polished shoes clicking against the concrete, his face a storm cloud of arrogance and rage. He loomed over her, 6 feet of entitlement, wrapped in grey pinstripes, his pale skin flushed red as he jabbed, a finger in her direction. "You think you're clever, don't you?" he spat, his voice a low growl that bounced off the walls. "Faking some government badge, playing spy like you're more than a street rat with a camera. I've seen your kind before, stirring up trouble, crying victim when you get caught." His words dripped with contempt, each syllable laced with the assumption that her brown skin marked her as less as someone who didn't belong in his pristine world of law and order. Maya met his gaze, her dark eyes steady, unblinking, letting him rant without a flicker of reaction. She could smell the coffee on his breath, see the veins pulsing in his neck, but she didn't flinch. She'd faced worse than this puffed up prosecutor, men who thought volume and power could break her. "You've got nothing," he continued, pacing now, his shoes scuffing the floor. "That email, a stunt, a desperate lie from a desperate woman. You're done, Jackson, I'll make sure you rot here." He leaned in close, his smirk a blade, expecting her to crumble. She didn't. She sat still, her mind already elsewhere, calculating the moves ahead, trusting her NSA team to pull the strings she couldn't reach from this cage. Edward stormed out, slamming the metal door, leaving her in the dim flicker of a single bulb swinging overhead. She exhaled, slow and controlled, the silence settling back around her like a cloak. Hours ticked by, the night deepening outside, and she let her thoughts drift to the kid in the alley, wondering if he'd made it home, if her video had brought him any justice. She didn't hear the guard's approach until his shadow fell across the bars, a hulking figure named Pritchard, his uniform stretched tight over a barrel chest. His buzzed head gleamed under the light, and his thin lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Got some friends who don't like your little movie," he muttered, his voice gravelly, his blue eyes glinting with malice. They think you're a problem. Maya's pulse quickened, but she kept her face blank, watching as he fiddled with a radio clipped to his belt. She caught the edge of a tattoo peeking from his sleeve, a jagged cross inked in black, a symbol she'd seen in NSA briefings on hate groups crawling through the South. Before she could respond, he turned and lumbered off, leaving her with a sinking chill. She didn't know it yet, but Pritchard had already made a call, his gruff voice whispering her cell number to a contact on the outside, a man with a shaved head and a pickup truck parked 3 miles away. That man belonged to the Sons of Liberty, a white supremacist crew that thrived on fear and fire, and they'd taken her arrest as a personal insult. They saw her as a nobody, a black woman who dared to defy their world, and they wanted her gone. By midnight, flames roared through Maya's apartment on the edge of town, the 2-bedroom walk-up she'd called home for 6 years. The blaze swallowed her couch, her books, the framed photo of her mother Ruth smiling on the mantel, turning it all to ash. Neighbors screamed, sirens wailed, but the sun slipped back into the night, their Molotov cocktails spent, their message carved in soot. She was nothing, powerless, a civilian they could crush. Back in the cell, Maya felt the walls close in, the air thicker now, her instincts screaming that something was wrong. She didn't know about the fire yet, didn't know her life was burning down, but she felt the shift, the weight of eyes she couldn't see. She stood, pacing the 5 steps, the cell allowed, her mind racing to piece together Pritchard's words. Had they found her cover? No, impossible. Her NSA files were buried too deep. This was simpler, uglier, pure hate sparked by that video, fanned by Edward's public scorn. She stopped, pressing her palms against the bars, forcing her breath to steady. She was safe here, she told herself, locked away where they couldn't reach her. The jail was a fortress, a barrier between her and the chaos outside. She almost believed it. Then the static crackle of Pritchard's radio cut through the quiet, drifting down the hall from the guard station 50 feet away. His voice was muffled, but she caught fragments, words that turned her blood to ice. "Yeah, she's here," he said, low and deliberate. "Sons want her quiet. Tonight. Send the crew." A pause, then a chuckle. "Teach her what happens when she steps out of line." Maya's hands tightened on the bars, her knuckles whitening, her heart slamming against her ribs. The cell wasn't a shield anymore, it was a trap, and the walls she'd counted on were closing in fast. She scanned the space. No windows, no weapons, just a cot and a toilet, her mind spinning for a way out. Edward's courtroom victory was child's play compared to this, a petty jab before the real blow. The Sons didn't care about her badge, her rank, her truth. They saw her skin and her defiance, and that was enough. She sank onto the cot, her breath shallow, every sound amplified now, the drip of a leak, the creak of boots, the hum of a plan. She couldn't stop. She'd exposed one injustice, and now another was coming for her, bigger, meaner, ready to strike. The radio hissed again, a signal in the dark, and she knew her night was about to get a lot longer. Maya Jackson's cell felt like a coffin as dawn broke, the grey light filtering through the bars, casting jagged shadows across her face. Her navy blazer lay folded on the cot, a makeshift pillow after a sleepless night, haunted by Pritchard's radio crackle and the Sons of Liberty's looming threat. Her ears strained for every sound, the shuffle of boots, the clink of keys, her body coiled tight, ready for the attack she knew was coming. How long could she hold out in this concrete box? What did the Sons have planned to silence her? She didn't have to wait long to find out. The heavy door at the end of the hall groaned open, and a new figure strode in, his silhouette sharp against the fluorescent glow. Agent Travis Cole, her NSA handler, cut an imposing shape in his black tactical jacket, his buzzed salt and pepper hair catching the light, his brown eyes locked on her with a mix of relief and urgency. He flashed a badge at Pritchard, who slouched against the guard desk, his tattooed arm flexing as he scowled. "Open it," Travis barked, his voice a deep rumble that brooked no argument. Pritchard hesitated, his lip curling, but a stack of clearance papers slapped onto the desk changed his tune fast. The lock clicked, the bars slid back, and Maya stepped out, her legs stiff but her chin high. Travis gripped her shoulder, a silent, signal of trust, and she followed him through the jail's maze of corridors, her heart pounding with the taste of freedom. Could this really be the end of her nightmare? Was she finally slipping Edward Langston's noose? They hit the courthouse steps just as the Atlanta sun climbed above the skyline, bathing the scene in a humid golden haze. Reporters swarmed like flies, cameras flashing, mics thrusting forward, their shouts a chaotic buzz. "Ms. Jackson, is it true you're NSA? Did Langston frame you?" Travis shoved through, shielding her, but Maya caught sight of Edward Langston lurking by. The entrance, his grey suit rumpled, his pale face a mask of fury. He'd been summoned back, forced to watch her walk free after his civilian jab blew up in his face. The email from last night, a coded NSA alert Travis had triggered, had done its job, proving her rank as Deputy Director of Operations. Edward's victory lap was over, and the press tore into him, headlines already screaming about a racist prosecutor humiliated by a black woman he'd underestimated. Maya allowed herself a smirk, a fleeting rush of triumph as she watched him shrink under the spotlight. Had she turned the tables for good? Could a single email undo his venom? The crowd parted as Travis hustled her into an unmarked SUV, its tinted windows a shield from prying eyes. She sank into the leather seat, her coiled hair brushing the headrest, exhaustion warring with relief. "You're clear," Travis said, his voice steady as he started the engine. "Langston's a laughingstock now. We've got your back." She nodded, letting the words sink in, believing for a moment that the worst was behind her. The video, the cell, the fire she'd learned about on the ride over, all of it seemed to fade as the city blurred past. She'd exposed the cops, survived, Edward's wrath, and now she was out. Wasn't that a win worth savoring? But the world had other plans. 10 miles away, in a quiet nursing home tucked among pines, Ruth Jackson hummed softly in her wheelchair, her frail hands folding a quilt. Her daughter had given her years ago. At 72, her grey curls framed a face etched with resilience, her brown skin glowing under the morning light streaming through the window. She didn't hear the pickup trucks rumble into the lot, didn't see the men in boots and camouflage spill out, their faces hard with hate. Vernon Hayes led them, a hulking ex-cop with a shaved head and a scar slicing his left cheek, his grey eyes glinting like steel. He'd walked free from a brutality rap years back, thanks to a rigged system, and now he ran the Sons of Liberty with a fist of iron. To him, Maya's video was a declaration of war, her release a personal insult, her blackness a target he couldn't resist. He kicked in the side door, his crew fanning out, staff scattering in screams. Ruth looked up, confused, as Vernon loomed over her, his breath sour with whiskey. "Your girl thinks she's untouchable," he growled, yanking the quilt away. "Let's see how she likes this." They dragged Ruth out, her cries lost in the chaos, leaving a note pinned to her empty chair. "Civilians don't fight back." Back in the SUV, Maya's phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number popping onto the screen. She opened it and her blood ran cold. A grainy photo showed Ruth, gagged, her eyes wide with terror, a camo-clad arm pinning her down. The caption, "Read, you're next." Maya's smirk vanished, her breath catching as panic clawed her chest. What kind of monsters would target her mother? How had they found her so fast? Travis glanced over, his jaw tightening as he saw the image. "Vernon Hayes," he muttered, slamming the gas. "Sons of Liberty, they're not done with you." Maya clutched the phone, her mind racing, the relief of her release shredded in an instant. She'd thought she'd won, thought Edwards. Defeat and the NSA's pull had brought her safety, but this was bigger, uglier, a racial vendetta exploding from courtroom snubs to a full-on assault. Could she outrun this new hell? Had her defiance painted a target too big to dodge? The SUV screeched toward the nursing home, tires smoking, but the lot was already empty. Ruth's wheelchair tipped over, the note fluttering in the breeze. Maya stumbled out, her knees hitting the gravel, her hands trembling as she read those 5 words again. "Civilians don't fight back." The phrase echoed Edward's taunt, twisted now into a promise of pain, a declaration that her skin, her fight, her very existence had sparked a firestorm she couldn't contain. Travis pulled her up, his voice grim. "We'll find her, but this is war now." Maya nodded, her eyes burning, the weight of what lay ahead crashing down. She'd beaten the cell, humiliated Edward, but Vernon Hayes had turned her victory into ash, and Ruth's life hung in the balance. What would it cost to bring her back? Was this the price of standing up? The answers loomed beyond the pines, dark and relentless, as the SUV roared back into the fight. If you think Maya's strength deserves a shout-out, drop a number 1 in the comments below. Disagree that she should have stayed silent to avoid this mess? Comment number 2 instead. Want to see her take down these racists? Smash that like button and subscribe to catch every twist ahead. Now tell me, what's Vernon planning next with Ruth in his grip? Will Maya's NSA skills save her, or has she just lit a match she can't put out? Maya Jackson gripped the steering wheel of the NSA-issued SUV, her knuckles pale against her brown skin, as Travis Cole barked coordinates into his earpiece beside her. The Atlanta skyline shrank in the rear view, replaced by sprawling pines and dirt roads twisting toward an abandoned warehouse 30 miles north. Her mother, Ruth, was there, held by Vernon Hayes and his Sons of Liberty. A fact burned into her mind by that chilling photo: Ruth's terrified eyes, a gag cutting into her cheeks, a camo sleeve pinning her frail frame. Maya's navy blazer, bunched at her elbows, sweat soaking through as she pushed the engine to its limit, the speedometer ticking past 90. Travis tapped a tablet, pulling up satellite feeds and thermal scans from NSA servers, his voice steady despite the chaos. Heat signatures confirm 8 hostiles, 1 hostage, northwest corner. We're 5 minutes out. Maya nodded, her jaw tight, her coiled hair bouncing with every jolt of the uneven road. Could she trust the tech to save Ruth? Was this her chance to strike back? The warehouse loomed ahead, a rusted skeleton of corrugated steel sagging against the dusk, its broken windows glinting like jagged teeth. She killed the headlights, coasting to a stop behind a thicket of oaks, her breath shallow as she scanned the perimeter. 2 pickup trucks sat parked near a loading bay, their beds stacked with crates, a faint glow flickering inside the building. Travis handed her a silenced pistol, its weight cold and familiar in her palm, a tool she'd wielded in ops from Kabul to Kiev. "We go in quiet," he whispered, his black tactical jacket blending with the shadows as he slipped out. Maya followed, her sneakers crunching softly on gravel, every nerve screaming as they flanked the structure. How close was Ruth? Could they pull this off without a firefight? They breached through a side door, the hinges creaking as they slipped, into a cavernous space reeking of oil and mildew. Crates towered in stacks, labeled with faded shipping marks, a maze that hid their prey. Maya's eyes adjusted to the dimness, spotting a lantern swaying in the far corner, its light dancing over Vernon Hayes' hulking form. He paced beside Ruth, who sat bound to a metal chair, her grey curls limp, her quilt clutched in her lap, like a lifeline. 6 of his men lounged nearby, rifles slung over shoulders, their laughter a low rumble as Vernon muttered something about teaching that black bitch a lesson. Maya's blood boiled, the racial slur igniting a fury she channeled into focus. She signaled Travis, who nodded, creeping left to flank them. Was this the moment to end it? Could she outsmart these thugs? She moved right, ducking behind a crate, her pistol raised as she lined up a shot. Vernon's scar gleamed under the lantern, his grey eyes darting as if he sensed the shift. She fired twice, the silenced rounds hissing through the air, dropping. 2 guards before they could blink. Travis opened up from the other side, his shots precise, 3 more collapsing in sprays of red. Vernon roared, diving for cover, his pistol barking as bullets pinged off steel. The 6th man lunged for Ruth, a knife flashing, but Maya was faster, her round punching through his skull, his body slumping inches from her mother's feet. "Stay down, Mama!" Maya shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos as she advanced. Travis pinning Vernon behind a crate with suppressive fire. Was victory this close? Could she taste it yet? Vernon's gun clicked empty and he cursed, his massive frame lurching upright, hands raised in mock surrender. "All right, you win," he growled, his scarred cheek twitching, a smirk playing. On his lips, Maya kept her sights on him, stepping closer, her heart slamming as Travis cut Ruth's ropes. The old woman trembled, tears streaking her face, but she stumbled into Maya's arms, her quilt falling to the grimy floor. "I've got you," Maya whispered, her grip fierce, relief flooding her as Travis covered their retreat. They edged toward the exit, a rusted double door 50 feet away, Vernon's smirk fading into the shadows. Had they really outplayed him? Was Ruth safe at last? The air shifted, a faint beep slicing through the silence, and Maya's instincts screamed too late. Vernon's hand slipped into his pocket, thumbing a remote, and the world erupted. A bomb rigged to the door detonated, a fireball blooming with a deafening roar, hurling steel and flame across the warehouse. Maya dove, shielding. Ruth as the ceiling buckled, beams crashing down in a storm of dust and heat. Travis yelled, his voice lost in the blast, and she felt the ground shudder beneath her, her ears ringing as debris rained. She coughed, blood trickling from a gash on her forehead, her blazer shredded at the shoulder. Ruth whimpered, alive, but dazed, her frail body curled against Maya's chest. Travis staggered up, his jacket singed, a cut bleeding above his eye. "Move!" he shouted, hauling them toward a gaping hole where a wall once stood, the night air rushing in. Vernon was gone, swallowed by the chaos, but Maya knew he wasn't dead. How had he planned this? Why hadn't she seen it? They stumbled into the woods, the warehouse collapsing behind them in a thunderous groan, flames licking the sky. Maya's legs burned, her lungs raw, but she pushed on, Ruth's weight a lifeline keeping her grounded. They reached the SUV, piling. And as sirens wailed in the distance, the glow of the fire painting the trees orange, Travis floored it, tires spinning on dirt, and Maya checked Ruth's pulse, her own hands shaking. "You're okay, Mama," she murmured, brushing gray curls from her mother's face, the quilt lost forever in the rubble. She thought they'd won, thought the rescue had broken Vernon's grip, but the bomb told a different story. He'd let them take Ruth, let them think they'd escaped, only to strike harder. As the SUV hit the highway, Maya's phone lit up, a new message pinging through the haze. She opened it, her stomach dropping. It was a screenshot of her NSA profile, her photo, her clearance level, everything, posted to a dark web forum titled "Race Traitors Must Die." The caption read, "She's no civilian now, hunt her." Vernon had hacked her, turned her identity into a weapon, and broadcast it to every hate group in Georgia. Her victory dissolved into dread, her breath catching as anonymous replies flooded. "To burn her house again, cut her throat, make her beg." How far would this spread? Who was watching now? Travis glanced over, his face grim. "They've got your file, this is nationwide now." Maya clutched Ruth tighter, her mind racing, the bomb's echo still pulsing in her skull. She'd saved her mother, bruised but breathing, only to lose everything else. Her badge, her cover, her safety, all shredded in one night. Vernon hadn't just retaliated, he'd unleashed a tidal wave of racial hate. Her blackness a bullseye for every bigot with a grudge. The threats kept coming, her phone buzzing like a live wire, each one a promise of worse to come. She'd outsmarted him once, but he'd turned the tables, and now the whole state wanted her dead. What had she unleashed? Was there any way back from this? Maya Jackson slumped in the passenger seat of the SUV, her navy blazer torn and blood-streaked, the gash on her forehead throbbing as Travis Cole sped through Atlanta's backroads. Ruth huddled in the back, her gray curls matted with dust, her frail hands clutching Maya's arm like a lifeline after the warehouse nightmare. And the phone in Maya's lap buzzed relentlessly, each ping a fresh death threat from the dark web forum Vernon Hayes had unleashed, her NSA profile now a beacon for every hate group in Georgia. "Kill the traitor. String her up." The words blurred together, a chorus of racial venom that made her stomach twist. How could her own agency let this happen? Was there no end to the hate chasing her? Travis's jaw clenched as he swerved past a gas station, his black tactical jacket still singed from the bomb. "We need to go public," he said, his voice low but firm. "Expose Vernon's attack, force the feds to act." Maya nodded, her coiled hair sticking to her neck, sweat mixing with blood. She'd saved Ruth, but Vernon's hack had turned her victory to ash, her identity a weapon in his hands. Could the truth turn this around? Would anyone even listen? They pulled into a safe house, a squat brick building hidden behind overgrown kudzu, its windows dark and shuttered. Travis hauled a laptop from a lockbox, patching into a secure NSA line, while Maya cleaned Ruth's scrapes with a medkit, her mother's soft whimpers cutting deeper than any threat. She dialed a contact at WSB-TV, a reporter named Lena Carter. She'd fed tips to before, her voice steady despite the ache. "I've got footage of a white supremacist bombing, targeting me and my family. Run it live, now." Lena didn't hesitate, and within an hour, Maya sat in front of a camera rigged in the safe house, her face bruised but defiant, Ruth beside her clutching a borrowed blanket. The broadcast hit the airwaves at 7, prime time, cutting into every screen in Atlanta. "My name is Maya Jackson," she began, her dark eyes piercing the lens, "Deputy Director of the NSA. Last night, Vernon Hayes and the Sons of Liberty kidnapped my mother, bombed a warehouse to kill us, and hacked my identity to incite hate. This is the footage." The screen split, grainy clips rolling from her phone. Vernon's sneer, the blast's fireball, Ruth's terrified face. The city erupted, social media exploding with hashtags. Justice for Maya trending as outrage swelled. Had she finally struck back? Could this force Vernon's downfall? By 9, choppers buzzed overhead, FBI vans screeching into the sun's known. Haunts tipped off by the broadcast's tidal wave. Agents stormed a trailer park 50 miles south, hauling Vernon out in cuffs, his scar glinting under floodlights as he spat curses. Maya watched the arrest on a live feed, her breath easing, a flicker of hope warming her chest. Ruth squeezed her hand, whispering, "You did it, baby." Travis cracked a rare smile, his cut still bleeding but ignored. "He's done," he said, shutting the laptop. "They've got him cold." Maya leaned back, the safe house's stale, air suddenly lighter, believing for a moment that justice had teeth. Was this the win she'd bled for? Had the system finally bent her way? Morning broke with a knock at the door, an FBI liaison delivering news. Vernon was locked up, evidence piling high. Maya exhaled, tasting relief, thinking she'd turned the tide. But the reprieve shattered at noon, when Edward Langston's voice oozed through a press conference on every channel. His grey suit was pristine again, his pale face smug as he stood at a podium, flanked by a judge in black robes, a man named Harold Vance, with a reputation for burying black defendants. "Maya Jackson's claims are a fraud," Edward declared, his tone dripping venom. "She fabricated that footage, forged NSA logs to frame an innocent man. She's no hero, she's a criminal exploiting her race for sympathy." Maya's jaw dropped, her phone slipping as Ruth gasped beside her. How could he twist this? What was he playing at? Edward waved a stack of papers, proof he'd conjured overnight, doctored logs showing her credentials as fake, her video, edits as staged. The judge nodded, his jowls quivering, his voice gravelly with bias. "Based on this evidence, Miss Jackson's bail is revoked. She's a danger to the public, a liar, hiding behind a badge she doesn't deserve." The room spun, Maya's victory unraveling as cuffs clicked back on her wrists, agents dragging her from the safe house while Ruth wailed, "She saved me!" Travis lunged to stop them, but a baton cracked his ribs, dropping him to the floor. Could this really be happening? Had the system flipped so fast? They hauled her to Fulton County Jail, a towering fortress of concrete and steel, her cell colder than the last, the walls stained with despair. Edward's frame-up hit harder than Vernon's bomb, a calculated strike to bury her deeper. His racism cloaked in legal lies. Hours later, a breaking news alert flashed. Vernon Hayes walked free, released on a technicality Edward had greased, his smirk back as he vanished into the night. Maya sank onto the cot, her blazer gone, her body bruised, the air thick with defeat. The guards outside her bars didn't hide their glee, their voices a chorus of slurs slicing through the silence. "Back where you belong, girl. Thought you'd fool us, huh? No badge gonna save you now." Their laughter bounced off the concrete, a taunt that echoed Edward's civilian jab, proving her blackness trumped her rank, her truth, her fight. How had justice crumbled so quick? Was her skin the real crime here? She curled her fists, nails digging into her palms, the broadcast's triumph now a cruel joke. Vernon was loose, Edward untouchable, and the system she'd served had turned its back, locking her away while the real monsters roamed. Ruth was safe. But for how long? What would Vernon do next? The cell door clanged shut, sealing her in. The guards chants a relentless drumbeat, her mind racing for a way out she couldn't yet see. If you believe Maya's fight against this rigged system deserves applause, type number 1 in the comments below. Think Edward's corruption proves justice is dead? Drop number 2 instead. Want to see her claw her way back? Hit that like button and subscribe for the next chapter of this wild ride. Now tell me, with Vernon free and Edward pulling strings, what's the next blow they'll land on Maya? Can she outsmart a jail cell and a racist judge? Or is this the trap she won't escape? Maya Jackson sat on the edge of her cot in Fulton County Jail, the concrete chilling her bones through her thin orange jumpsuit, her navy blazer a distant memory. The cell block hummed with the low growl of inmates and the taunts of guards, their slurs a constant sting since Edward Langston's frame-up locked her back in this pit. Her forehead gash had scabbed over, but her spirit burned, fueled by the news of Vernon Hayes walking free, his release a slap from a system that bent for men like him. How could she fight from here? What move could turn this cage into a weapon? She patted her jumpsuit's hem, feeling the hard edge of a burner phone she'd bribed a janitor to smuggle in. $20 slipped through a crack in the visitation wall. It was a lifeline, a shard of hope in this steel tomb. She waited for lights out, the buzz of the overhead bulbs fading to a dim flicker, then slid the phone out, its screen casting a faint glow on her coiled hair. Her fingers danced across the keys, texting Lena Carter at WSB-TV, the reporter who'd aired her warehouse footage. Langston's dirty. Bribe Judge Vance to free Vernon. Check his offshore accounts. Cayman Islands. Account 784392. Break. It now. She hit send, her pulse racing, knowing this could shred Edward's smug facade. Could the truth still cut through? Would it free her again? The story hit the airwaves by morning, Lena's voice slicing through breakfast chatter as TVs blared in the common room. Breaking news. Prosecutor Edward Langston accused of corruption, linked to offshore accounts funneling cash to Judge Harold Vance. Sources say he rigged the release of Vernon Hayes, a known supremacist. The screen flashed bank records, grainy but damning, numbers matching Maya's tip. Inmates murmured, guards stiffened, and Maya kept her head down, her lips twitching with a flicker of triumph. Hours later, the fallout landed. Edward's suspension hit every headline, his grey suit swapped for a perp walk photo, his pale face twisted in rage. By noon, a public defender stormed the jail, waving a release order, the judge's bias now a scandal too hot to ignore. Maya walked out, her jumpsuit swapped for a borrowed hoodie, the sun searing her eyes as she breathed free air again. Had she finally broken him? Was this the knockout blow? Travis Cole waited in a pickup, his ribs still bruised from the safe house. Raid, his black tactical jacket swapped for denim to dodge prying eyes. Nice work, he said, tossing her a new phone, its screen clean of threats. Langston's toast, Ruth secure at a new spot. Maya nodded, sliding in, her mind already racing ahead, tasting victory as they peeled out toward the city. She'd turned the tables, used her wits to topple Edward from a cell, and now she was back in the game. Could this be the turning point? Was Vernon next? The answer came too fast. They hit a quiet stretch of I-85, the pines blurring past, when a black van roared up behind, its tinted windows gleaming like a predator's eyes. Travis cursed, flooring the gas, but the van swerved closer, its side door sliding open to reveal 4 Sons of Liberty in camo, Vernon Hayes at the helm, his scar a jagged slash under the noon light. "Ambush!" Travis yelled, yanking the wheel. But a hail of gunfire erupted, bullets punching through the pickup's tailgate. Maya ducked, her heart slamming, the phone tumbling as glass shattered around her. How had they tracked her so quick? What did Vernon want now? The van rammed them, metal screeching, forcing the pickup into a ditch. Maya's head cracked against the dash, stars bursting in her vision as tires spun uselessly in mud. Travis drew, his pistol, firing back, but a shotgun blast caught his shoulder. Blood spraying as he slumped. Vernon's crew piled out, boots thudding, their rifles trained as they dragged Maya from the wreck, her wrists zip-tied before she could blink. Vernon loomed over her, his grey eyes glinting with hate, his fist slamming into her jaw, splitting her lip. "Thought you'd bury me, huh?" he snarled, his voice thick with whiskey and rage. "You're nothing but a black rat in over her head." His men kicked her ribs, boots crunching bone, their laughter a chorus of slurs as she gasped, blood pooling in her mouth. Was this her punishment for fighting back? Could she survive this fury? They hauled her into the van, tires squealing as they sped off, leaving Travis bleeding in the ditch, the pickup a smoking ruin. She woke hours later in a hospital bed, cuffs chaining her to the rail, an IV dripping into her arm. Her ribs ached, her face swollen, every breath a knife. A nurse hovered, her eyes darting nervously, whispering, "Cops brought you in, said you're lucky to be alive." Maya's mind churned, piecing it together. A passing driver must have called it in, saving her from Vernon's kill shot, but the relief curdled fast. A TV bolted to the wall flickered on, a news ticker scrolling. NSA agent Maya Jackson suspected mole, badge stolen in attack. Her stomach dropped, her hand brushing the empty pocket where her badge had been. Vernon's crew flashed her ID on screen, his scarred face grinning in a leaked video. "She's been feeding us intel," he lied, waving the badge like a trophy. "This traitor's no civilian, she's ours." How had he flipped it so fast? What game was he playing? "Now?" A detective burst in, his badge glinting, his voice cold. "You're under investigation, Jackson. That badge ties you to the Suns. You're not going anywhere." Maya's head spun, her victory over Edward now a footnote as Vernon's lie took root. He'd stolen her badge in the ambush, turned her counterstrike into a noose, framing her as a mole while he slipped deeper into the shadows. The hospital room closed in, monitors beeping, her ribs screaming with every move. She'd exposed Edward, walked free, only to stumble into Vernon's trap, his racial hate now a national smear. Her phone was gone, Travis's fate unknown, Ruth's safety a fragile thread. The detective loomed, his pen scratching notes, suspicion etched in his stare. She'd fought from a cell once, but this was worse. Her name poisoned, her fight twisted, into treason. How far would Vernon push this lie? Was there any way to claw back from this abyss? Maya Jackson lay shackled to the hospital bed, the cuffs biting into her wrists, her swollen jaw throbbing from Vernon Hayes's fist. The sterile room buzzed with the hum of monitors, the IV dripping cold fluid into her bruised arm, her orange jumpsuit replaced by a flimsy gown. Her ribs ached with every shallow breath, a reminder of the Sons of Liberty's ambush on I-85, their boots cracking bone as Vernon stole her NSA badge and framed her as a mole. The TV above flickered with his lie looping on every channel. "She's been feeding us intel," he'd sneered, waving her badge, turning her fight into treason. How could her own agency swallow this? Was her career, her life crumbling this fast? She flexed her fingers, testing the cuffs, her coiled hair matted against the pillow, her mind racing despite the pain. Travis Cole was out there, maybe bleeding, out in that ditch, and Ruth's safety hung by a thread. She needed a move, something big, something now. Could she still trust the NSA? Would they fight for her or bury her deeper? A janitor shuffled in, his mop slapping the floor, his eyes darting to her before slipping a burner phone under her pillow with a nod. "From Cole," he whispered, then vanished. Maya's heart leapt, her hand snaking the device free, its screen lighting her battered face. Travis was alive and he'd sent her a lifeline. She dialed his secure line, her voice a rasp. "You okay?" Travis coughed, his tone rough. "Shoulders busted, but I'm mobile." "Vernon's hack went deep, Maya. He's got your files and he's not stopping." She swallowed, the stakes sinking in. "We shut him down. Now." Travis grunted agreement, patching her into an NSA server through the phone, his fingers flying on his end 50 miles away. Could they outrun Vernon's lie? Was this her last shot? They worked fast, Maya's thumbs navigating encrypted backdoors, her training kicking in despite the haze of painkillers. She traced Vernon's breach to a server in Macon, a digital fingerprint glowing on her screen, and with Travis's help she flooded it with a virus, locking him out of her files. She exhaled, a flicker of control returning as the system blinked red. Access denied. "He's blind now," Travis said, his voice crackling. "I'm uploading proof to HQ, clearing your name." Maya nodded, relief washing over her, believing. She'd reclaimed her edge. Had she stopped the bleeding? Could the NSA pull her out now? The hospital door creaked, a nurse checking her chart, oblivious as Maya hid the phone. Hours ticked by, her pulse steadying, until a breaking news alert jolted the TV awake. Her stomach dropped as Vernon's scarred face filled the screen again, this time in a slick video, his grey eyes cold. "Maya Jackson confesses," the caption read, and doctored footage rolled. Her voice, warped and stitched, saying, "I sold secrets to the Sons. I betrayed my country." The edit was seamless, her bruised face from the ambush twisted into a fake admission, her badge flashing as proof. How had he pulled this off so quick? What kind of monster faked this deep? The room spun, her victory over the server dissolving as the nation watched her confession. Phones buzzed beyond the walls, outrage spreading, and by morning a congressional probe launched, racist politicians seizing the moment. Senator Clyde Barrow, a Georgia relic with a drawl and a Confederate tie pin, took the podium on live TV, his jowls quivering. "This thug in a suit thought she could fool us," he sneered, his pale hands waving the fake video. "She's no patriot. She's a disgrace to every uniform." The crowd cheered, their signs screaming, "Lock her up." Her blackness a crime they'd already convicted. Could words cut this deep? Was her fight now a national witch hunt? The NSA's response hit like a hammer. A memo flashed on her burner, stamped with the director's seal. Deputy Director Jackson suspended pending investigation. All clearances revoked. Maya's breath caught, her chest tightening as the words sank in. They'd cut her loose, her own agency bowing to the lie, leaving her defenseless in this hospital bed. She'd locked Vernon out, thought she'd won, but he'd turned her counterstrike into a guillotine, his racial hate now a congressional crusade. How could they abandon her this fast? Had her badge ever meant anything? Footsteps echoed down the hall, slow and deliberate, and Maya tensed, shoving the phone under her thigh. The door swung open, revealing a shadow she didn't expect. Vernon Hayes himself, his camo jacket swapped for a janitor's uniform, his scar a jagged slash under the fluorescent light. He smirked, locking the door behind him, his grey eyes glinting with triumph. "You're a hard one to break," he muttered, his voice thick with menace, pulling a knife from his pocket, its blade catching the light. "But I've got you now." Maya's heart slammed, her cuffs rattling as she tugged. No weapon, no way out. How had he slipped in? Was this his endgame? He stepped closer, the knife hovering, his men outside the room, their shadows pacing the hall like wolves. "Thought you'd shut me down, huh?" he growled, leaning in, his breath sour. "I don't lose to your kind." The slur hung heavy, a promise of pain, and Maya's mind raced, her body screaming as she braced for the strike. She'd beaten Edward, outsmarted Vernon's hack, only to land here, cornered by a blade and a lie that wouldn't die. Travis was miles away, the NSA had turned its back, and Vernon's crew stalked her like prey, their boots a drumbeat of doom. What had her fight cost her now? Was this the price of defiance? If you're rooting for Maya to outwit this racist trap, drop number 1 in the comments below. Think the NSA's betrayal proves the system's rotten? Type number 2 instead. Want to see her turn this knife fight into a comeback? Smash that like button and subscribe for the next twist in this relentless saga. Now tell me, with Vernon's blade at her throat and the nation against her, how does Maya flip this nightmare? Can she dodge death in a locked room, or is this the moment her luck runs dry? Maya Jackson stared into Vernon Hayes' grey eyes, the knife in his hand glinting under the hospital room's fluorescent buzz, her wrists straining against the cuffs chaining her to the bed. Her bruised jaw throbbed, her ribs screamed with every breath, the flimsy gown no shield against the cold steel hovering inches from her throat. Vernon's janitor uniform hung loose on his hulking frame, his scarred cheek twitching as he smirked, his voice a low growl. "How you're done, Jackson. No badge, no backup, just you and me." His men paced outside, their shadows slinking past the locked door, a pack of wolves ready to pounce. Maya's coiled hair stuck to her sweat-slicked forehead, her mind racing, despite the haze of pain. She'd locked him out of her NSA files, thought she'd won, only to land here, cornered by a blade and a nation baying for her blood. How could she turn this? Was there a way out of this trap? She shifted her thigh, feeling the burner phone's hard edge still tucked beneath her. Travis Cole's lifeline, now her only shot. Vernon leaned closer, his whiskey breath sour, the knife tracing a slow arc toward her chest. "Thought you'd bury me with your little hack," he snarled, his free hand gripping her jaw, forcing her to meet his gaze. "Our your kind never learns." The slur landed like a punch, but Maya's eyes burned, her fear hardening into resolve. She jerked her head free, slamming her forehead into his nose, a crack echoing as blood sprayed. Vernon staggered, cursing, and she yanked the phone out, thumbing a panic code to Travis before the knife swung back. Could he get here in time? Would this gamble save her? The door rattled as Vernon's crew reacted, boots pounding. But Maya rolled off the bed, dragging the frame with her, the cuffs scraping her skin raw. Vernon lunged, his blade slashing air, and she kicked the IV stand into his shins, toppling, him in a crash of metal and glass. She scrambled up, adrenaline drowning the pain, her hands fumbling with the phone as Travis's voice crackled through. "Hold on, Maya. 10 minutes out." 10 minutes was a lifetime, but she'd make it work. She dodged another swipe, the knife nicking her arm, blood welling as she dove for a tray of surgical tools, snagging a scalpel with her bound hands. Was this her stand? Could she fight her way free? The door burst open, two sons piling in, rifles raised, their camos streaked with dirt from the road. Maya slashed the scalpel across the first man's wrist, his gun clattering as he howled, then drove her elbow into the second's throat, dropping him gasping. Vernon roared, charging, but she sidestepped, ramming the bed into his knees, pinning him long enough to slice her cuffs against a jagged bed rail. The plastic snapped, her hands free, and she grabbed a fallen rifle, its weight steadying her shaking grip. She fired, 3 rounds punching through Vernon's shoulder, his knife skittering across the floor as he crumpled, blood pooling beneath him. Had she ended it? Was he down for good? The hallway erupted, more sons rushing in, but sirens wailed. Outside, Travis's pickup screeching into the lot, with a squad of rogue NSA agents he'd rallied, their guns blazing as they stormed the hospital. Maya held Vernon at gunpoint, her chest heaving, his crew faltering under the onslaught. Travis burst in, his shoulder bandaged, his eyes wild with relief. "You're insane," he panted, cuffing Vernon as the big man groaned, his scar slick with sweat. Maya nodded, her voice hoarse. "Get him on camera." They dragged Vernon to the parking lot, Travis rigging a live feed to Lena Carter at WSB TV, Maya's battered face filling screens nationwide. "This is Vernon Hayes," she said, her tone steel, "caught trying to kill me after framing me. As a mole. Here's his confession." She jammed the rifle barrel into his ribs and Vernon spat blood, his voice slurring. "Yeah, I did it. Faked the video, stole her badge, all of it." The broadcast hit like a bomb, millions watching as her name cleared, the congressional probe collapsing, Senator Barrow's rants drowned by public fury. Had she won at last? Could this bury them all? Morning broke with Vernon in custody, his crew scattered, and Maya patched up in a safe house, Ruth safe nearby under NSA guard. She thought she'd turned the tide, her rogue stand a triumph over hate, but the reprieve lasted hours. Edward Langston's voice slithered back on air, his grey suit crisp again, reinstated by a corrupt governor who dodged the scandal. "Maya Jackson's a terrorist," he declared, his pale face smug on every channel. "This black radical staged that confession under duress. She's a threat to our nation." Maya's blood ran cold, her safe house TV blaring as Ruth clutched her hand, trembling. How could he rise again? What pull did he still have? Edward waved new evidence, forged docs claiming she'd armed the sons, his lies slicker than ever. Before she could blink, SWAT vans roared up, battering rams smashing the safe house door, black-clad figures flooding in with rifles drawn. Travis fired back, buying her seconds, but a flashbang blinded her, smoke choking the air as boots pinned her down. "You're under arrest," a voice barked, cuffs snapping tight, her scalp grazing the floor as they dragged her out. Ruth screamed, "Leave her alone!" But a cop shoved her back, the old woman crumpling against the wall. Where was she now? Had her fight just sealed her fate? They hauled her into a van, the safe house a smoldering wreck. Travis tackled and cuffed beside her, his face bloody. Hours later, she woke in a holding cell, her gown gone, a new jumpsuit clinging to her bruised frame, the air thick with defeat. A news ticker scrolled, "NSA fugitive Maya Jackson linked to terror plot." Edward's counterstrike had hit harder than Vernon's knife, his racism cloaked in law, turning her victory into a manhunt. She pounded the bars, her knuckles splitting. Realizing Ruth was gone again, snatched in the raid, her mother's safety a mirage. How had Edward twisted this so fast? Was there no bottom to his hate? Maya Jackson sat in the holding cell, her new orange jumpsuit chafing against her bruised skin. The concrete walls of Fulton County Jail pressing in like a vice. Her knuckles bled from pounding the bars, her coiled hair tangled and damp with sweat, the echo of Edward Langston's terrorism charge still ringing in her ears. The SWAT raid had torn her from the safe house, Travis Cole beaten beside her, and Ruth, her mother, snatched again in the chaos, her frail cries lost to the smoke. How could Edward keep winning? Was her fight just fuel for his fire? She paced the 5-foot space, her ribs aching from Vernon Hayes' ambush, her mind churning through the wreckage of her life. The TV in the hall blared, "NSA fugitive Maya Jackson linked to terror plot." Edward's smug face painting her as a black radical, his lies a noose tightening with every broadcast. She'd forced Vernon's confession, cleared her name, only to be branded a monster by a system that thrived on her skin. Could she claw back from this abyss? Was Ruth still breathing out there? A guard's radio crackled, snippets drifting through the bars. "Militia camp 20 miles east, Hayes spotted." Maya froze, her pulse spiking, piecing it together. Vernon had Ruth, his Sons of Liberty regrouping after his arrest, and Edward's pull had freed him to strike again. She sank onto the cot, her hands trembling, then felt a hard lump under the mattress. A burner phone slipped in by some unseen ally, maybe Travis's last move before the raid. She powered it on, texting his secure line. "Ruth's with Vernon. East camp. I'm breaking out." His reply pinged fast. "On it. Hold tight." Could she trust him again? Would this gamble save them both? She waited for midnight, the cell block sinking into a restless hum, then pried a loose screw from the cot, working it into the lock until the cuffs clicked free, her wrists raw but unbound. She slipped to the bars, jimmying the phone's battery, into the mechanism, sparking a short that popped the door open with a soft clank. Her heart slammed as she crept out, dodging a dozing guard, his tattooed arms slack across the desk, and snagged his keys, her sneakers silent on the concrete. She hit the parking lot, hot wiring a patrol car, its engine roaring to life as alarms wailed behind her. How far could she push this escape? Was freedom worth the risk? Travis met her at a gas station 10 miles out, his shoulder still bandaged, his pickup idling beside a rusted pump. He tossed her a rifle, his face grim. "Camp's in the woods, heavily armed. Ruth's there, confirmed by drone." Maya gripped the weapon, her jaw tight, the night air thick with pine and gasoline. They sped east, the car's headlights cutting through the dark, until a militia camp loomed ahead, a sprawl of tents and bonfires ringed by barbed wire. Sons of Liberty patrolled with shotguns, their camo blending with the trees, Vernon's, voice barking orders near a central pit, where Ruth sat tied, her gray curls limp, her quilt gone. Could Maya pull this off? Was Ruth strong enough to hold on? They flanked the camp, Maya's rifle raised, her training kicking in as she picked off 2 guards with silenced shots, their bodies slumping into the dirt. Travis lobbed a smoke grenade, chaos erupting as Sons scattered coughing, and Maya bolted through the haze, reaching Ruth in seconds. She cut the ropes, Ruth's frail arms clinging to her, tears streaking her face. "I knew you'd come," she whispered, her voice cracking. Maya hauled her up, Travis covering their retreat with bursts of gunfire, the camp's edges igniting as a stray round hit a fuel drum, flames roaring skyward. Had they beaten Vernon again? Could this blaze be their salvation? They stumbled, too, The pickup, Ruth trembling between them, the camp a fiery hell behind, tents collapsing in the inferno. Maya floored it, tires spinning on mud, her breath ragged but fierce, believing she'd won, Ruth safe in her grip. She'd gone rogue, broken, out, torched their lair and reclaimed her mother. Was this the end of Vernon's reign? Did defiance finally pay off? The answer hit like a thunderclap. 20 miles out, a blast shook the earth, a plume of smoke rising over Atlanta's skyline. Her burner buzzed, a news alert flashing. NSA, Office-bombed Agent Travis Cole dead in attack. Maya's chest caved, her hands slipping on the wheel as Ruth gasped beside her. Vernon's scarred face filled the screen. Free again, Edward's pull unshaken, claiming, "Jackson's terror cell struck tonight. She's a cop killer now." The bomb had leveled her old HQ, Travis's body buried in the rubble, pinned on, her in a lie that stuck like blood. How had Vernon escaped the flames? What deal kept him untouchable? Sirens wailed, drones humming overhead as the nation branded her a murderer, her black skin a death warrant in their eyes. She swerved off-road, the pickup jolting through brush. Ruth's sobs filling the cab as drones closed in, their red eyes blinking in the dark. She'd saved her mother, burned Vernon's camp, only to lose Travis and ignite a manhunt, her victory a mirage in a war she couldn't win. Where could she run now? Was this the cost of her fight? If you're cheering Maya's guts to save Ruth against all odds, type #1 in the comments below. Think Vernon's unstoppable revenge proves she's in too deep. Drop number 2 instead. Want to see her dodge these drones and strike back? Hit that like button and subscribe for the next heart-pounding chapter. Now, tell me, with Travis gone and drones hunting her, how does Maya outrun a nation that's turned her into a monster? Can she protect Ruth from this storm, or has her defiance lit a fuse she can't snuff out? Maya Jackson gripped the steering wheel of the stolen pickup, her bruised hands trembling as she tore through Georgia's backwoods, the drone's red eyes fading into the night sky behind her. Ruth huddled beside her, her gray curls plastered. With sweat, her frail frame shaking from the militia camp escape, her sobs a quiet rhythm against the engine's growl. The orange jumpsuit clung to Maya's skin, soaked with mud and blood. Her coiled hair wild as she swerved past gnarled oaks, the sting of Travis Cole's death still raw in her chest. Vernon Hayes' bomb had leveled the NSA office, pinning it on her, branding her a cop killer, a black terrorist hunted by a nation she'd served. How could she outrun this lie? Was there any safe corner left for Ruth? She glanced at the burner phone on the dash, its screen cracked but glowing, her last link to a fight she refused to abandon. She'd saved her mother, torched Vernon's camp. But Travis's blood was on her hands now, a loss that cut deeper than Edward Langston's smears. She punched a number, routing it through encrypted channels to Lena Carter at WSB-TV, her voice a rasp over the line. "I've got proof. Edward's behind this. Vernon's his pawn. Send it to the White House." Lena's reply crackled, urgent. "Give me everything, Maya. I'll push it live." Could the truth still break through? Would the president listen to a fugitive? She uploaded files from the phone, hacked NSA logs showing Edward's calls to Vernon, bank transfers tying him to the bomb, his racist rants caught on audio. "She's a stain we'll wipe out." Her fingers shook, uploading Vernon's confession from the hospital, every bite a gamble to clear her name. Hours later, the pickup idled in a ditch hidden by kudzu as a TV signal flickered through the cracked windshield. The president's face filled the screen, his tone grave. Evidence confirms Edward Langston orchestrated a terror plot, framing Deputy Director Maya Jackson. She's pardoned, effective immediately. Langston's fired, under arrest. Cheers erupted online. Maya vindicated trending as the nation flipped, her photo no longer a target but a hero's badge. Ruth squeezed her arm, tears glistening. "You did it, baby." Maya exhaled, her ribs aching, a flicker of redemption warming her cold bones. Had she finally won? Was this nightmare over? Morning broke with choppers overhead, not hunters, but escorts, ferrying her to a safe house in Savannah, a white clapboard tucked by the river. Ruth settled on a couch, wrapped in a quilt from a stash, her frail smile a balm as agents briefed Maya. Edward was in cuffs, his grey suit swapped for orange, his corruption a national scandal. She stood on the porch, the humid air thick with salt, believing the drones were gone, the threats silenced. She'd leaked the truth, turned the tide, and the president's word was law. Could she breathe now? Was justice hers at last? The answer came at dusk, a shadow creeping over the riverbank, Vernon Hayes' scarred face glinting in the fading light. He'd slipped custody, his sons of liberty regrouping, and now they struck. Tires screeched as vans rammed the safe house, camo-clad figures spilling out, their rifles spitting fire. Maya dove for Ruth, shoving her behind the couch as glass shattered, bullets chewing wood. Agents fired back, dropping 2 sons, but Vernon's voice boomed through a megaphone. "She's no civilian now." The attack went live. A dark web stream hacked onto every screen, millions watching as he dragged Maya outside, her wrists zip-tied, his knife at her throat. Could he really defy a pardon? How deep did his hate run? The stream crackled. Vernon's grey eyes wild as he faced the camera, his crew beating her, boots slamming her ribs, blood pooling on the gravel. "This is what traitors get," he roared, slashing her arm. Her screams roar as viewers typed cheers. "Finish her!" Ruth wailed inside, pinned by a son, her quilt stained red as an agent fell beside her, his throat cut. Maya's vision blurred, her body crumpling, the racial hatred peaking in a public execution. Her pardon a paper shield against this mob. Vernon grinned, the knife rising, his voice a chant. "Black bitch dies tonight." She'd exposed Edward, won the nation's trust only to be strung up by Vernon's vengeance. Her triumph a mirage as the world watched her bleed. How had he turned victory into this? Was this the end she'd fought to avoid? Maya Jackson's world narrowed to the gravel biting her knees, the zip ties slicing her wrists, and Vernon Hayes' knife hovering above her throat, its blade slick with her blood. The Savannah safe house burned behind her, flames licking the night sky, the air thick with smoke and Ruth's muffled screams from inside. Vernon's Sons of Liberty circled her, their camo boots crunching as the dark web stream broadcast her torture to millions, his scarred face snarling into the camera. "She's no civilian now," he spat, his grey eyes glinting with hate, the racial venom dripping from every word. Her arm throbbed from his slash, her ribs cracked under their kicks, her orange jumpsuit torn and soaked red. How could a pardon crumble this fast? Was her fight just bait for this trap? She caught a glimpse of Ruth through the shattered window, pinned by a son, her grey curls wild, her frail hands clawing at her captor as the quilt lay shredded on the floor. Maya's chest burned, her mother's terror fueling a rage that drowned the pain. She twisted, slamming her heel into Vernon's shin, his grunt a brief victory as the knife clattered free. She rolled, snagging it with her bound hands, the blade, biting her palms as she sliced the ties, blood slicking her grip. Could she turn this hell around? Was there a shred of hope in this chaos? The crowd shifted, a son lunging with a rifle, but Maya ducked, driving the knife into his thigh, his scream piercing the night as he fell. She grabbed his gun, firing wild, 2 more dropping in sprays of red, their bodies slumping as the stream flickered, viewers gasping online. Vernon roared, tackling her, his fists pounding her face, splitting her lip anew, but she kneed his groin, shoving him off with a surge of adrenaline. She bolted for the safe house, bullets zipping past her. Lungs roar as she crashed through the door, spotting Ruth in the corner, the son's arm around her throat. How close was she to losing everything? Could she save her mother one last time? She charged, slamming the rifle butt into the man's skull, his grip loosening as he crumpled, Ruth collapsing into her arms, sobbing, "Maya, oh God." The fire spread, beams groaning overhead, and Maya hauled Ruth toward the back exit, her legs buckling but relentless, the heat searing her skin. Vernon's voice echoed outside. "She's mine." His crew regrouping as the stream cut in and out, the world watching her defiance. She kicked the door open, dragging Ruth into the yard, the riverbank glinting 20 feet away, a slim chance at escape. Had she broken his hold? Was this her final stand? She turned, rifle raised, and saw Vernon charging, blood streaking his scar, a shotgun in his hands. She fired, the round punching his chest, and he staggered, dropping to his knees, his grey eyes wide with shock. She advanced, her voice a growl. "This ends now," and drove the knife into his heart, twisting until his breath stopped, his body slumping in the mud, the stream cutting off as his camera clattered free. Silence fell, the sons scattering into the dark, their leader dead, her hands trembling with his blood. Could this be over? Had she killed the monster at last? She stumbled back to Ruth, lifting her mother's frail frame, the river's cool, hair a fleeting balm as sirens wailed in the distance. Too late to save the safe house, but close enough to find them. She thought she'd won. Vernon's death a brutal triumph, her fight vindicated in his lifeless stare. She sank beside Ruth, brushing grey curls from her tear-streaked face, whispering, "We're safe now, Mama." But the night had one more. Blow! A figure emerged from the shadows. Edward Langston, his grey suit swapped for a black jacket, his pale face twisted with rage, a pistol gleaming in his hand. How was he here? Hadn't the president locked him away? He stepped over Vernon's corpse, his voice ice. "You think you've won, Jackson? I'll end your kind myself." Before Maya could react, he fired, the shot tearing through Ruth's chest, her frail body jerking as blood bloomed across her gown, her eyes locking on Maya's in a final, fading plea. "No!" Maya screamed, lunging, but Edward kicked her back, the pistol swinging to her head, his smirk a blade. "You're next," he hissed, his finger tightening. How could he steal this from her? Was Ruth's death his revenge? She scrambled, grabbing Vernon's shotgun, but a second shot rang out, grazing her shoulder, pinning her to the dirt as Edward loomed, his racial hate a living thing in his glare. Sirens closed in, lights flashing, but he didn't flinch, his power unshaken even in cuffs. The NSA memo hit her burner seconds later, a cold text, "Jackson disavowed, all ties severed." Her agency had cut her loose, Vernon's death and Edward's escape too messy to claim. Leaving her alone with Ruth's body cooling in her arms, her mother's blood soaking the ground. She cradled Ruth, her screams silent now. The shotgun, useless as Edward vanished into the night, cops swarming but blind to his flight. She'd killed Vernon, ended his terror, only to lose Ruth to Edward's bullet, her victory a hollow shell as the world spun dark. What had she fought for? Was this the breaking point she couldn't come back from? Maya Jackson knelt in the mud beside Ruth's lifeless body, her mother's blood soaking her orange jumpsuit, the Savannah riverbank cold under her knees as sirens wailed closer. Edward Langston's gunshot still echoed in her skull, his pale face vanishing into the night after murdering Ruth, his vow to end her kind a knife in her gut. Her shoulder bled from his grazing shot, her coiled hair matted with sweat and dirt, the shotgun limp in her hands as Vernon Hayes' corpse sprawled nearby, his scar dark with congealed blood. She'd killed him, ended his terror, only to lose everything to Edward's bullet, the NSA's disavowal a final betrayal burning in her pocket. How could she fight now? Was there any justice left to claim? Cops swarmed the safe house ruins, their flashlights cutting through the smoke, shouts overlapping as they secured Vernon's body, oblivious to Edward's escape. Maya staggered up, Ruth's grey curls brushing her arm one last time, her chest hollow as she slipped into the shadows, the river's edge her only cover. She couldn't stay, couldn't mourn, not with Edward loose and the nation hunting her. As a cop killer, her blackness a death sentence in their eyes. She clutched the burner phone, its cracked screen flickering, and texted Lena Carter at WSB TV, her fingers shaking. "Edward killed my mother. I've got proof. Lure him out." Lena's reply pinged fast. "On it, where?" Maya typed coordinates for an old factory 10 miles north, her mind spinning a trap, her grief sharpening into rage. Could she end this monster? Was Ruth's death her fuel or her fall? She ditched the jumpsuit for a dead son's camo jacket, its sleeves sticky with blood, and hotwired a pickup from the chaos peeling out as drones buzzed overhead, their hum a relentless threat. The factory loomed in the dark, a crumbling shell of brick and rust, its smokestacks jagged against the moon. She rigged the burner to a laptop scavenged from the safe house, hacking a news feed with Lena's help, her voice breaking as she broadcast live. "Edward Langston murdered my mother tonight," she said, her battered face filling screens, Ruth's blood still on her hands. "He framed me, bombed the NSA, and ran. Meet me here if you're man enough." She aired Vernon's confession, Edward's offshore accounts and a blurry clip of him firing, his grey suit swapped for black, his smirk undeniable. Could this drag him out? Would he bite the bait? The world watched, outrage flaring online, justice for Ruth trending as millions demanded his head. Edward couldn't resist, his ego a leash she'd yank hard. Hours later, headlights pierced the factory's gloom, his black sedan rolling in, his pale hands gripping a pistol as he stepped out, his jacket flapping in the wind. "You're a dead woman, Jackson," he sneered, advancing through the dust, his grey eyes glinting with hate. Maya waited in the rafters, her shotgun steady, her trap set with tripwires and gas cans rigged to blow. She fired a warning shot, concrete exploding near his feet, and he froze, cursing her name. "You're nothing," he spat, his voice a racial lash, "a civilian who got lucky." How could he still taunt her? Was his arrogance his doom? She dropped down, rifle raised, forcing him back as Lena's feed rolled, capturing every word. "Confess," she growled, her finger on the trigger, "or I end you now." Edward laughed, cold and sharp, but the camera pinned him and he faltered, his pistol wavering. "Fine," he hissed. "I killed her. I'd do it again. Your kind don't belong here." The admission hit the airwaves, a nation gasping as cops swarmed the factory, alerted by the stream, their cuffs snapping on Edward's wrists, his pale face twisting in fury. Maya lowered the gun, her breath ragged, justice a bitter taste as he was dragged away, his crimes exposed, his power broken. Had she won at last? Could Ruth rest now? She stumbled outside, the factory's shadow lifting, believing the fight was done. Edward's arrest a hard-earned victory after Vernon's blood and Ruth's loss. But the night wasn't finished. Her burner buzzed, a leaked NSA memo flashing on the screen, its words ice in her veins. Jackson framed by agency to bury scandal. Langston a pawn, operation approved by Director Pierce. Her knees buckled. The truth a sledgehammer. The NSA had orchestrated it all, Vernon's bomb, Edward's lies, Ruth's death, a cover-up to hide their own dirt, her life a sacrifice for their secrets. How could her own people betray her this deep? Was everything she'd fought for a lie? Choppers roared overhead, black blades slicing the sky, not saviors but hunters, their guns trained on her as the memo hit the dark web, whistleblowers spreading it wide. She was no hero, no fugitive, just a pawn they'd burned, her civilian label a death sentence reborn in their treachery. She ran, the shotgun slipping from her grasp, her shoulder bleeding anew as drones joined the chase, their red eyes locking on her through the trees. Edward was gone, Vernon dead, but the real enemy loomed larger, a system that chewed her up and spat her out, her blackness their excuse, her fight their fuel. Where could she hide now? Was this the war she'd never win? Maya Jackson stumbled through the Georgia woods, her camo jacket snagging on thorns, her shoulder leaking blood through the makeshift bandage as choppers roared overhead, their blades slicing the night into jagged strips. The drone's red eyes blinked through the trees, hunting her like a wounded deer, her breath ragged as the leaked NSA memo burned in her mind. She'd been framed by her own agency, a pawn sacrificed to bury their scandal. Edward Langston and Vernon Hayes mere tools in their game. Ruth's blood still stained her hands, her mother's death a wound that wouldn't close. Edward's arrest a hollow win against this betrayal. How could she outrun her own shadow? Was there any fight left in her bones? She clutched the cracked burner phone, its battery flickering, her coiled hair plastered with sweat as she tripped over roots, the factory's echo fading 10 miles behind. The shotgun was gone, dropped in her sprint, her body a map of bruises and cuts from Vernon's. Torture, Edward's bullet, and the malicious kicks. She'd exposed them all, Vernon dead, Edward cuffed. But the NSA's treachery turned her civilian label into a death warrant, her blackness their excuse to erase her. Choppers tightened their circle, floodlights sweeping the canopy, and she sank behind an oak, her legs buckling, the phone slipping as a final text pinged. "No way out, Jackson. Surrender." Could she keep running? Was death her only defiance? She stood, hands raised, the lights blinding her as ropes dropped, black-clad figures rappelling down, rifles trained on her chest. "On your knees!" a voice barked, and she complied. Mud, soaking her knees, her head high despite the cuffs snapping tight, her wrists raw from a dozen escapes. They hauled her into a chopper, its roar swallowing her silence, the woods shrinking below as Atlanta's skyline loomed, a city that hated. Her feared her, hunted her. She expected a cell, a bullet, an end. Her fight snuffed out by the agency she'd served. How had it come to this? Was Ruth watching from somewhere, her sacrifice in vain? They landed at a federal compound, a grey fortress ringed by wire, and dragged her to a holding room, its steel walls cold, a single chair bolted to the floor. She sat, her shoulder throbbing, her jumpsuit traded for a prisoner's grey, expecting the executioner's knock. Hours stretched, the silence a weight, until a TV flickered on, Lena Carter's voice breaking through static, urgent and sharp. Whistleblower evidence just dropped, exposing an NSA conspiracy. Director Pierce framed Deputy Director Maya Jackson to cover illegal ops, ordered her mother's death and rigged Langston's crimes. Maya's breath caught, her eyes widening as grainy audio played. Pierce's voice clipped and cold. "Jackson's expendable. Kill the old woman. Pin it on her clean slate." Could this be real? Was the tide turning at the last gasp? The screen cut to Pierce in cuffs, his silver hair disheveled, his suit crumpled as feds stormed NSA headquarters. Files spilling, Edward Langston's cellmate now, his grey eyes hollow. A second clip rolled, a tape from an insider proving Maya's every move. Vernon's death, Edward's trap, Ruth's murder was a setup, her civilian taunt a lie to break her. The nation erupted, protests flaring, Free Maya trending, as millions demanded her release, her battered face a symbol of defiance against a rotten core. Agents burst in, uncuffing her, their faces grim but obedient. "You're cleared, ma'am, President's orders." Had justice clawed back from the grave? Could she walk free after this hell? She staggered out, the compound's gates swinging, wide dawn painting the sky gold, her shoulder aching but her spine straight. Pierce and Edward were jailed, the NSA gutted, her name restored, Ruth's death avenged in headlines screaming truth. She stood on the steps, the air crisp, believing the war was won, her fight a beacon that burned through the dark. She'd surrendered expecting death, only to rise as the system's reckoning, her mother's blood a price that toppled giants. Was this the end she'd bled for? Had defiance finally prevailed? Night fell, and Maya vanished. No car, no trace. Just a note left on the compound steps, scrawled in her hand. "Justice isn't theirs to give." The words hit the news like a bomb. Her grey jumpsuit found folded by the river, her phone smashed beside it, its screen black. Reporters swarmed, speculating wild, her legacy a riddle, dead by her own hand or plotting in shadows. The world buzzed, her name a ghost. Some swearing they saw her in Atlanta's alleys, others claiming she'd fled south, a whisper of revenge trailing her steps. How could she slip away? Was she done, or just beginning? The truth hung unanswered, her fight against racial hate, systemic lies and personal loss, a flame that wouldn't fade, her civilian label a taunt she'd turned into a myth. Pierce rotted in a cell, Edward's empire dust, but Maya's exit left a void, a question mark etched in blood and grit, her mother's memory, her only compass in a world she'd shattered and left behind. Maya Jackson's journey in Prosecutor Calls Black Woman, just a civilian, until the NSA confirmed her identity in court, unveils profound truths about resilience, systemic betrayal, and the cost of defiance. Her relentless fight against racial injustice teaches us that courage can shine even in the darkest corners, pushing back against hate with unwavering resolve. Facing brutal attacks from Vernon Hayes and Edward Langston, she proved that strength isn't just physical, it's the will to stand tall when the world tries to crush you. Yet her story also reveals the bitter reality of institutional failure, where the NSA's treachery turned her into a scapegoat, showing how power often shields itself by sacrificing the vulnerable. Ruth's death underscores the personal toll of this war, a reminder that victories can come at an unbearable price, leaving scars that never heal. Maya's disappearance with the note, "Justice isn't theirs to give," challenges us to question who truly holds the reins of righteousness, individuals or the systems they defy. It's a call to recognize that justice isn't handed out, it's fought for, often in shadows cast by betrayal. Her tale urges us to confront prejudice head-on, to see beyond labels, and to honor those who risk everything for truth, even when the fight leaves them broken. What does her vanishing mean for us? Drop a comment with your thoughts. Hit like if her grit inspires you. Subscribe for more tales of defiance, and share to spread her legacy. Thanks for joining this journey. May you find strength to challenge your own battles.